Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this webinar for busy lawyers. These monthly webinars we bring to you are designed to give you practical information in about 20 to 30 minutes, and that's information that you can take right back to your office and use right away. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Andrea Cannavina. Andrea is the CEO of LegalTypist, a company offering subscription-based secretarial and administrative services to law firms. She is also an author, speaker, and creator of the DASH productivity system and the founder of the Virtual Bar Association, where she shares her unique perspective of and the materials she's created, collated, and curated over 18 years of working on and through the web. Before I turn it over to Andrea, I'd like to let you know that we're going to have time at the end of her presentation to take any questions. What you should do is when your questions arise, just write them into the chat box, and at the end, I will relay all those questions to Andrea. We'll have plenty of time to answer every question that comes up. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Andrea.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I always like to thank participants who make a point of it in their day to take a few minutes to listen to little old me as I try to clear through some of the things that I've learned and culled in the 18 years that I've been legal typist. In that time, along with building a company based on subscription services for law firms from 1 to 100, raising my family here on Long Island, New York, and I also do individual coaching. And along the way, I actually had to develop a process, which I'm going to share with you all today, as well as test a lot of the different ways. And I don't recommend these processes just because of my own individual experience. In my brick and mortar days, as I like to call them, and in real life days, I actually did work at some of the largest law firms here on Long Island and in and around New York City. I was one of those working girls with, you know, the sneakers and socks over my nylons, praying for a seat on the train on the way home, especially. But so I have some practical experience about applying ways to get organized, especially when you're working with people in very chaotic situations. And then I also have the ability to apply a lot of different things that may not have worked for me personally, but I understand how it may work in other situations, along with my own, again, personal system and the things that I've adapted. And 3 of those things I'm going to talk to you today. But first, we're going to move along because I first like to define some of the things. And one of the things I found in coming up with all of the presentations and the advancement of what I teach is, I call it the chaos at work, which is complete havoc and overwhelming stress. This is what I am on a mission to wipe out for people, because there's more than enough things that happen in life that you have no control over, and having control over a few of the things that you do is something that I teach people how to do, and with systems and processes in place, and that's kind of how you do it. And we're going to start with my first little kind of productivity tool, which I call my 5 pillars of productivity, and it starts with, it's a choice. You can almost interchange the words productivity and organization, because some people think of productivity and they just think of something. There's other ways to become more productive, but the #1 way that you're actually going to get there is to get organized in a lot of different ways. To start with that, you have to understand it's choice. So you're actually going to have to make a choice. You're going to understand that there's an issue, and then you're going to have to make the conscious effort in order to change something that you're doing in order to make the outcome different. What this generally means is you're going to invest more time in the beginning in order to move forward and reap the benefits of it on the other end. It's not an instantaneous thing. This isn't some kind of a gizmo or a gadget or some kind of missing something or other that you're just not quite connecting everything. No, it doesn't work that way. Well, being interconnected and having access to information in the proper way when you set yourself up and all of these things are great. You just haven't found that missing gadget, and I get that one a lot. So it's really, you have to make a conscious decision to do something. That's what I had to do, like way back in 2005, when it went from more than me and just about 7 law firms, and now I had people scattered all across, and I needed to seriously get organized, and email was the biggest bane of my existence. So I'm going to teach you that. But so I knew email was the biggest thing in mine. It may not be the biggest thing in yours. It may be piles of paper. It may be, this is like, you know, it may be whatever it is for you. There are different bottlenecks in every workflow, whether it's you're not technologically advanced. And that doesn't mean that you're a geek or you're a guru. It just means that you're qualified enough to know what things do, not technically do them if you don't want to. There's all kinds of levels on all kinds of spectrums, but everybody has to start in the same place, and that's knowing what you need to do to get done is half the battle. So we need to recognize what it is that you're not getting done. Usually you can start identifying some of those things by the piles and papers and things that seem to get bottlenecked and pushed down on the scale of urgency. So that's one of my pillars. And then my rule of 3 rules for everything. It's like in nature when you're planting, I don't know, gardeners 3-5. It's natural. It's three things are at least what you need in order to make a change. You first have to decide that you're going to do the change, then you have to act upon the change, and then you have to repeat the change until it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, then it becomes something that is not something you have to think about as much. Yeah, think of it in terms of driving. Once you are driving, but you're not, unless you're here with me in New York, Long Island, in which you're never in a way to be a little less in the present moment. You can do thinking, you can be singing at the top of your lungs, you can be doing some other tasks, not touching your phones or anything, or thinking about things while you're doing something rote. So driving would be something that's rote. So you want to try to get all of these rote things out, and how you get things out. And I say that do them in the rule of 3s. The rule of 3s also comes into respect with regard to your day. That's moving forward with my system. You can only plan to do 3 things in one day. But just keep the rule of 3 whenever you're trying to change yourself or change something. 3 things make it kind of stick. Do that 10 times, it's the 30 times that make it a habit. And once it's a habit, it's now a new way for you to do anything, including getting more productive and organized at the office, which means don't just put things down willy-nilly. Now you have a system to put things, and we'll get there. And the 5th pillar is actually the most important. And I say this as somebody who has more than once felt like a complete and utter failure at being organized, at being productive. And I actually consider myself a productivity coach, although I don't like that term. It conveys the wrong message. I'm someone to identify and help you, lead you through the ways. And yeah, I do a little cheering on and things like that, but it just, so many people use that term, and it's so loosely, it's like for everything. So I've never been one for the mumbo jumbo, as everybody knows. So the most important thing for everybody to understand is every day you have to wake up to a new day. There are going to be days and weeks and sometimes even months where you're not even gonna, every system you put in place may or may not be working, but you're just still inundated, or you're so focused on a project, or your assistant isn't with you anymore, you had to do something different. But when you come out of it every day that you wake up is actually a new day for you to go, wait, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing for a week, but now if I just get to my day, open my journal, do my 1, 2, 3s, which we're going to get to, and you just start your process again. 3 times, make it a choice, reinforce your choice, and 10 times you do that, you make a new habit, and you're back into the habit again. So wake to a fresh new day, your new list, and your new moving forward. Because that's how you're going to get clear, which is how you get rid of the chaos. And you're going to be now in a process to consistently leverage every available remedy, which is something that I like to get people to. I'd like you to be clear, because I want you to understand when I say every available remedy available, that is not just a tech. There are different ways for you to become more productive that don't include technology. While technology is a tool, and it is a great tool, it also can become an over-encompassing excuse for you not to actually be getting things done or it can become an unbelievable time suck in addition to the tasks that you already have to manage. So I'm not a tech, do not call me a tech person. I am a tool person. If a tech works, it's one of the tools that I'll set up, because if it doesn't work, I'm not, yeah, no, I need things that work. You need things that work, I need things that work too. So, but this is one of the things I want everybody, again, with the choice. Every single time I talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, how you doing? The standard response is busy is the new black. It's like, I'm busy. I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. I'm thinking it's because people weren't connected, and then they became connected. They became chaotic because they're connected. Everybody understands that chaos. I want you to come out the other side. I don't want you to be that chaos person that says you're busy all the time. You will have periods of busyness that are outside of your control, and you did choose this profession. So you know what? Those will happen, but those should not be the constant. If the constant state that you feel is stressed and busy because you have to do this or you have to do that, you're either overscheduling yourself or you're not having in place the proper systems you need in order to funnel things that you don't need to be doing. Or technically you have too much business, perhaps you need to expand. But you don't want to be busy all the time. Busy, busy, busy is the stressful person's excuse for not doing something different. Do something different. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for your friends, do it for everyone. Don't, it's not just you, by the way, and here's a stat that I absolutely love. This was done by Thomson Reuters. It's a few years old, but it's still accurate. These numbers are still probably there if they're not even up a little bit more. But if you take a look at what are the challenges at most small law, and as much as people want to say small law, solo law, lawyers are lawyers. Doesn't matter what size firm you're in. You have to deal with people. You have to deal with matters. You have to deal with clients, almost always under stressful situations. And you have to try to make everything better for everybody else while you're doing everything else. You have to take care of yourself too. And I'm not a wellness coach. It's just, I'm a realist, call me that. So take a look, we're not here. Challenges in acquiring new business, 63%, it's a challenge. Okay, that's 63. So all of you stressed out about not getting new business. All right, now look down the scale a little bit. 81% of you are too stressed because you're spending too much time on administrative tasks. Then pop it down, you got 71% in complexity of technology. Granted, technology advancing, crazy, Bitcoin, crazy, cryptocurrencies and artificial intelligence and all of these things, yes, all moving forward, but so is the day-to-day technology that people use. And well, that is the application of that as it is to people in terms of protection and all these other things, the law catches up. So there's a broad spectrum in terms of technology that I imagine attorneys, like every normal human being, has to be proficient in, but it extends a little bit more because of, you know, the certain duties and with regard to the security and duty not to disclose, inadvertently disclose the one that nobody ever talks about, that kind of stuff. Anyway, but now I'm popping down, because security is my other thing, by the way. Popping down, lack of internal efficiency, 89%. It's the biggest number on here. So everybody feels as though there's no internal efficiency. They're spending too much time on administrative tasks, and I can almost tell you why. Because a lot of these companies that go around and tell you and go to the small firm solo lawyers and say, buy our product, it's going to take care of all of these things for you. Those were actually coded and created to be in an individual environment. Individual, one person. So when you think of technology, you have to think about how it was basically built. Now they've expanded, they've gotten better, they're doing a lot better in a lot of different ways, and this is, you know, a long time ago, but what I'm trying to say is technology is not the solution, even though the technology companies are telling you that, because of course they want you to use all of their products. You don't need a ton of products, you just need to use the products that you have wisely. That's all part of efficiency, and then you need to make sure that you have the right ones. But before we get there, first you need to dump the distractions. All of this busy, 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 busy. How do you get from being busy to not busy? You got to dump your distractions. There's a lot of things, beep and blah, 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 blah. Don't. One of my biggest tips for everybody, don't use your work domain email address for anything other than work. Don't sign up for listservs. Don't do anything else. Don't do anything, don't give that away for this, that, or the other thing. Get a Google account. I call Google the Borg, but anything that isn't, private communications with regard to your business, funnel it through a Gmail account. Why not? It's got never-ending storage, and you can search it really quick, and you can even pull it into other applications when you have the time to focus on it. Because you just don't want all of this stuff coming at you. And if you think about it, every single email you get, even if it's just to take a look at the subject line and decide to delete, that just took time out of your life. Everybody's email addresses only get more. It's never getting less. And the more you sign up for, the more spam you get too. So the more you get signed up for other things, and it's just never ending. So in part of dumping the distractions, only use your domain email address for legitimate email communications for work. And that will significantly reduce what you have coming in and start you on that dump the distractions. Of course, don't get me started. I don't believe in personal mobile devices that are for work that have a multitude of apps on them either. But that's a different type of distraction. Right now, let's just try to keep everything out of the administrative aspect of your firm's domain email. And then there's the clear the clutter. I'm all about feng shui, which is part of it is about decluttering. It's about harmonizing your space. Feng shui is in 5 different elements. They're all in nature. I'm kind of a nature person, but I don't quite take it to that level, and I actually do need to fix what's going on my walls. You guys got the pictures of outside, but it's pretty soon I got to put some art up, and that's a shout out to Rochelle, because every time I see her walls from Washington, they're always so nice. Anyway, so it's all about harmonizing. It's not about being perfect, but it's about making sure that you don't have clutter. Clutter in your email inbox would be what I was just discussing. And then there's the paper clutter that you may have around that needs to get removed. Yeah, I'm a filer too when I need to, but you know what? You know it's everything that's in there. It's still a distraction. Do you need to have a perfectly sterile and surface all the time? Absolutely not. We're human beings, of course not. But that said, you shouldn't have to be moving pile after pile because you need to get some actual legitimate work done. So you need to clear out the clutter and spend some time doing that. Once you go through all of that, you kind of got rid of the piles, and you got kind of you're ready moving forward. You've got the decision that you're going to do. How do you now get all of that chaoticness into clear? There's only 3 ways that I found that you can increase the productivity and efficiency in any office, or technically any process. That's you need to streamline it, which means you have to pull everything out of it that isn't necessary. Then you have to figure out where it is that you can automate, because it could be different little bits of automation through different little bits of everything. And then for everybody, that seems to be one of the toughest, is delegate. Because either you don't know how to delegate, you've never delegated to anyone, or you think that it's something that it isn't. And so these are the only ways. Delegation in terms of attorney work product is anything that doesn't actually generate revenue to me. So that's either the stuff that you're doing in order to facilitate the value you give to your clients, whether that's hourly billing, value billing, however it is that you work it out. But anything that you do that doesn't actually do that, or doesn't actually bring in new value to the firm, is really outside of the scope of what you should be doing. You should be able to delegate pretty much everything else other than that, and that's substantive at this point, substantive and administrative work, both in-house and outsource. So there's just a multitude of options for you to set yourself up in order to, quote, delegate. But perhaps it's something that you need to actually help clear and define and whatnot. So, but these are the 3 ways that you actually can increase the productivity. In the streamline, one of the things I like to say is absolutely the cloud and technology, being able to focus, being able to have everything on everywhere for you. There's a huge difference between having your information accessible to you when you need it versus you being accessible to anybody that knows you're carrying an electronic device. So be very, very careful what you do in this day and age in terms of communication and how you communicate if you don't want people to be utilizing that form of communication as a quote normal way. Texting is a perfect kind of an example of a technology that I don't necessarily or normally recommend that attorneys incorporate into their workflows unless it's absolutely necessary with, say, internal processes or key people or key team members. But I would not necessarily say texting is something somebody should put in place for either the potential new client generation process, especially, or even new client or clients. Texting from an office type of environment or from somebody, quote, at the office in terms of making sure, times and dates and things, okay. But personally, I don't like attorneys to be personally connected to anything else without having something in the middle to make sure that, if they're in court and can't actually engage in an emergency, there's a way for somebody to know that. And also because I think we all need to have a definition of when we're at work and when we're not. And I call it a personal mobile device for a reason. It's a personal mobile device. It's not technically a work device. It's what you carry around on your person. So sometimes defining work is very easily done by nobody at work ever knowing what the direct dial number of that is. And of course, when you do texting, without a tech in between, there might be a tech or two. I think there's a text. I remember talking to someone. Anyway, it'll come to me. But anyway, streamlining, what you want to do is do it correctly. You want to pull out everything which I call the cruft. It's the extra superfluous code. It's the stuff that you don't actually need in every single one of your processes. Okay, and you want to make sure that you're always viewing it with you having secure access to your information, files, and data as you need, and not necessarily the entire World Wide Web having the same access as you. Once you've streamlined whatever process this may be, you now move forward to automate. That is where you try to piece it out and parse it out into whichever places you can in order for a technology or a piece of equipment or a person other than you. That's part of the automation process. Well, I guess not really a person because that's the delegate that comes next. But automating, it kind of is to that level now because you put in place a process in the automation part to delegate, and there you go, and now delegate, and it comes back again. So they're all intertwined. They all work together. The most important thing that's going to increase the efficiency is to streamline it. For the office, the most important way for it to streamline it for you personally is going to delegate it because that's getting it off your to-do altogether, but then certainly automate anything as much as you possibly can that's left so that you're doing as little as possible, not as much. The application that I always recommend and have for an extremely long time for all of this is Microsoft Office 365. I have a webinar from I think the first 6 months it was out, done by Ben Shore, who now works over at Microsoft, if anybody's interested. And there's several reasons why. I even have an updated quote about the security. Basically, Microsoft says it's your data, they're your files, we're not looking. And for number one reason, that would be why I would say, and why I have legal, quote, IT people who say that utilizing this environment for attorney-client work product is okay. So that's why I utilize it. Of course, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one anywhere, not even any on the web. You guys do what you need to do. I know that this is what it says in Microsoft Office 365. This is how LegalTypist clients are advised where their information is stored, if we do store any at all, because we store very little. And everybody agrees to it, and it seems all good. I've just been advised that technologically moving forward, it's actually in a very expandable state right now. When it was first, in its first iterations, it was a little more difficult to coordinate and collaborate, but a lot of that has grown out of it. And provided you have a good IT person in between that understands your requirements, both electronically and as a legal professional and Office 365, you can really coordinate a really great deal of stuff in a secure environment and take care of a lot of the stresses of streamlining because you control everything basically for you and all your people through it. So everybody has to have an email address. That email address is part of this Office package. You cut off that email address, they no longer have the stuff. So even if they have the equipment, they can't get at it. So it's just a wonderful tool, especially I find to recommend to help corral a lot of what's going on in terms of the quote IT of any size law firm workflow. Now email's crazy. Everybody knows it. It's something like we check it. It used to be 50 times a day, I think, but that was 2011. So 2019, I'm going to say people check it 50 times an hour. Yeah, it's really that bad. It's that addictive. And Blackberries aren't around anymore. They're the ones that started that whole habit. But email's crazy, and not only that, it inundated, it came at it, it comes at us. It's got a lot of different stuff that comes at us, but that comes, it's disparately. It's either in a message, it's part of an attachment, it's part of a file or a picture file. It's a link to the web. So a lot of different things actually are coordinated through email. And so you need a way to handle it. And I learned in 2005 that if I didn't get a handle on email, I was going under. LegalTypist was not going to be able to expand. Not even one more firm could she take on if I didn't figure out how to get a handle on this, because I was constantly feeling like I was missing something, and I was. My inbox was overloaded. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning all stressed out because I remember somebody said something, and then I'd fall asleep, never remember again until the next time I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, did I do that thing? It was just, again, I had a full house restoration and 2 kids under the age of 6 at that time. So a little crazy, maybe I was, but I needed a system. I studied David Allen. I studied Barbara Hemphill. I started studying, there's this woman, Fly Lady, with your clean saying, I was studying everything I could get my hands on and trying to apply their processes to me, and it wasn't working. Some things would work and some things wouldn't, but I ultimately, with GTD, really, David Allen's Getting Things Done, I was a devotee, and it didn't work for me. The lists blew it for me, just absolutely. I just could not keep those lists coordinated. There was more lists. I had lists coming out of lists. It was just wrong. That, and I couldn't file act toss. Every productivity specialist tells you out there, FAT, file, act, toss. So I would encounter these things that I couldn't file, that I couldn't act upon, and that I couldn't toss. They didn't know what to do with. And I would spend any little creative juices I had trying to figure out how to name it to fit into one of those things before I was just like, this just isn't working for me. But there was nobody else. I'd read everything. I'd looked at everything. Next came up Tim Ferriss and his 4-hour work week. And I was like, for your lifestyle, dude. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So what ended up happening was I said, I need my own system, or I have to give up, and I wanted my own system. So I said, oh, hubris, I'll do it myself. It needed to be simple. It needed, because if it wasn't simple, I wasn't going to do it. It needed to be easy to remember because I already had so much else going on. And the biggest problem for me is it needed to transcend paper and digital, which, you know, again, this goes back 2005, 2006. So that one was one of the hard ones. And along came Daft. So in all of my realization, I realized I needed a holding spot for things, whether they were paper or an email. And so I started with, what was it? Can't remember. Anyway, so it ended up with defer, which is where I ended up putting it. And then I moved the letters around. So instead of it being FAT, it's defer, act, file, toss. So that's what the D stands for. So the FAT is still file, act, and toss. And then there's D, defer. Now, how do you use it? It's very simple. You say it to yourself a few times. Daft, defer, act, file, toss, defer, act, file, toss. And then every single time that you are presented with something that you have to decide what you need to do with, you only decide, do I need to defer it, act upon it, file it, or toss it? Those are your only 4 options. Watch how quickly you start things, delete, 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 delete. Those are everybody's favorite, and it's the fastest. And so you become a delete queen or king. And then you put everything into the act folder. So we'll apply this right now. We'll restrict it to your email. So here you are in your email inbox. We'll say there's 100 messages in there. I know, don't laugh. There's 100 messages in there. You need to clear out those 100 messages. You will now look at each one of those messages and decide defer, act, file, or toss. You will place them into folders that you name, defer, act, file, and you can just toss into the old, delete bin there. And off they go. So you do nothing until you get through those 100 emails and you decide, do I need to defer? Do I need to file? Do I need to act? Or do I need to toss? And you'll go through them. When you're done and you're at 0 in your inbox, you now immediately go over to your act folder, open your act folder, and see everything that you put in there that you decided you need to act upon. So when you're in the inbox, you don't stop to, like, say, write an email or make a note to call somebody or anything else. If you have to do something with regard to something that was in there, that's why it went into your act. You know, say have of those 100 messages, say you have 12 that you had to act on. take a look really quick and decide which one of those is 2 minutes or less. And then you do those things that are 2 minutes or less until they're done. Now they either go over to file or they go into defer, because if it's something in the future, then that's where you would put them. Okay, now in your act folder, all you're going to have is the things that are going to take more than 2 minutes. Say we have 3 of those. Those are the things where you're now going to take 2 minutes right now, drag it over to your calendar, drop it on down, and think to yourself, I'm going to need how much time to do that research, go to this, figure this out, whatever it is that's more than 2 minutes. Find the amount of time in your calendar within the next week, month, whatever it suits, and actually put the item in there. What this does over time is actually organizes your calendar forward for all of the items that you know are going to take a little more than 2 minutes to do. And you've already blocked out the time. So over time, just by doing this simple process alone, we'll start organizing your calendar and your tasks moving forward electronically, just because you're organizing your emails at the same time. All about efficiency here. So now, once you've done your more than 2 minutes, you've calendared them, you've thrown those whatever-evers over into the defer folder because it's upcoming, and you know when you go to your calendar, anything that told you to do this is going to be in defer. Then when you're done with it, the system is done, then it goes into file. Basically, what you're going to have at the end of every single time of your session, which is the process of drafting your inbox, you'll have 0 emails in your inbox. You'll have 0 emails in your act. You will have several emails in your defer folder, but almost all of them, not all, almost all of them will have a date and time for which you have a task that they're related to. Some things that go into your defer folder will be, say, of course, my e-zine, you don't put that up in Google. You, of course, sign up for mine and you get it directly into your, because it's special. But you know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is there are going to be some things that you will get that you will have to think about. Ruminate is what I call it. You'll have to throw them over into defer. And at the end of the month, what ends up happening is you basically can take your file folder, and if you want, you can rename it over to the month and the year, or however it is you want to reverse cron it, and make a new file folder. And then what I like to do is take everything that was in my sent folder and move all of the sent messages for the past month into that monthly folder. I used to then PDF that folder, but because of how Office 365 has everything backed up, I think that's a little more redundant. I go back to the days of PST files. So that's basically DAFT. It's really kind of easy. It's really kind of quick. I'm going to give everybody here a link to the Techno Lawyer Techno feature. I got it down to 4 pages, so you can review everything. And of course, if you have any questions, give me a call or set up an appointment, either one of my sites. Now, quickly, I know we're getting a little close to time here, so I want to go. For my daily notes, and what helps, for the paper part of my organization is something I founded called Bullet Journal. It was meant, pardon me, for creatives, and there's now a whole book. I have it behind me here, written by the author. So to me, it's something very simple to understand that the author made very complex in order to write a book. I couldn't get DAFT to get more complex than my little story and stuff. I think it's 16 pages, but it's also only $10. So there's a reason. But anyway, so daily bullet journal is what I like. Here, I'll show you. This used to be my old one. Yeah, this is one of my old ones. If you can tell, it's got the Evernote stuff on it here, and I had one of my little stickies on the back. That's from WordPerfect. And then inside, this is how you take down your notes. Please, I have really bad handwriting, but this is how I do it. You'll see one side is kind of open, the other side I have my lists, and I can explain that, but I'm not going to explain bullet journal to you because it's too video. I'd much rather you absorb DAFT from what I've said, and you go look at the 2-minute video at bulletjournal.com. Again, I'll give a thing with all of the links so you don't have to stress about it now. And you learn it. It's basically a way for you to organize your notes so that your tasks and daily musings, however you want to call it, tickler system, is all in one spot. And one of the reasons why I like it so much and how I've modified it, here's my new one screen, it's a little different, is, and I kind of told everybody about this, and here's kind of a blank one, but here you'll see, is my 1, 2, 3. Okay, I put 1, 2, 3. I open mine every day. Put the date. I always have to put the day of the week, otherwise I forget. And then I write a few of the things that I know that are going on. And 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 is either for the initials of somebody I need to contact, or when you start writing the 1, 2, 3, watch the 3 things. It's funny how the brain works. Once it knows 1, 2, 3 is coming up, those 3 things fill up, and they're always with good things. So that's one of the things that I did to tweak bullet journal. But it's a really great way for you to have a more organized process for keeping your work notes, but also some more of your creative thoughts, which is why on the left side of mine you see it's an open page. That's more for my daily scribbles, or, oh my goodness, somebody called me, who are you? Oh, I don't know who you are, so now I have that over there. And then whatever I need to move it over into Office 365, the contact or whatever, then they get crossed off. So it's a great way to transcend the digital and paper in an easy way, and it's also a great way to keep a lot of other things organized. But I can go more into that if anybody's interested. Just get in touch with me, and I'm happy to. And now the last one that I actually wanted to cover, I don't have the video for. I can't pull it in over here. If you go, and again, I'll give the link, legaltypist.com/43, which is the numbers 43, and folders, all lowercase. It's called 43 folders. This is a great way to coordinate the disparate amount of paper that comes into a working environment when you have multiple people and you're trying to do something like keep an organized court calendar, or something of a centralized calendar that relies heavily on some of the incoming mail, but also relies heavily on a few key people in order to keep it kind of going. And how this works is pretty easy. Everything that comes in from the paper or can be written on paper in terms of a tickler. I don't know if people here know what tickler systems are, but it's a tickler system. So basically you set up a bin folder, file drawer, has 43 folders, 12 months and 31 days. So this month goes at the front, and then there's the number of days behind, and then the rest of the months go at the back. It is perpetual, so this just keeps moving, and you keep pulling things forward. And anything that you get that's paper for a certain date, so let's say it was for October 1st, I got it today, that would go in the October folder. And then the 1st of October, everybody pulls everything out, and now anything that needed to go into one of the dated folders would go into the dated folders, and everything for the 1st now, I would have in front of me, and I would know that something. The reason why this works so well is because it's very easy for people to dump this piece of paper, this disparate note, this tickler, into this process without it bogging down everybody else. Yet, if a very key person is not available, you can pull out that day, and anything that they felt was pertinent or that needed to be taken care of, that was, say, a court date or something, courtish on it, you have it right there. So you're not relying on anything other than the office's tickler system as kind of like the redundant of the calendar, of the person, of the place. If anything happened, oh, we know this, oh, we know that, oh, we know this. Is somebody covering that? And it's a great way for the person that has to coordinate all of that back into a centralized calendar for everybody to pull off of, digitally speaking. So the 3 things that I wanted to recommend today are Adapt My System. I think it's a wonderful way for people to be introduced to a system that just kind of works without thinking, and it's morphable. You can do different things with it. You can put color in it. People have done a lot of things with it through the years. It's helped a lot of people. But at least it helps you understand how to corral email, which is every professional person's bane of existence this day. So put in place a process to control email. That'll give you a really big boost. Start trying to centralize your notes using bullet journal, a centralized place to write things down. Start working, the rule of 3s into your day. And then the paper. Start reducing the paper. Start organizing it better, which is the 43 folders. And you can start reducing it by turning things digital, which everyone thinks scanning. It's great. You can take a picture of a page too. It doesn't necessarily have to be a PDF. A lot of times when you're trying to reduce the amount of paper for something, doesn't mean that you need this paper ever again for anything. You don't even need to ever print it out again. Perfect example, my bullet journal, it's Evernote, and I have taken a picture of my daily pages since forever. I don't do it at the end of every day. I do it whenever I catch up. Click, 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 click. They go up into the Evernote journal page, which actually just happened if anything ever happened to my bullet journal, I always had the digital copies, which I actually do, and I just really did, which is why I had to go green. And which is why you see one that's old, because my last bullet journal was almost 18 months and it did not have the Evernote on it. That said, when you're thinking of taking paper digital and you're thinking of making it help you be more productive, don't always think that you have to turn it into part of the scanning process that does a lot of stuff. You can, but there's also this process here. If you were to do a 43 folders, once everything comes out, that's when it gets scanned, or that's when it gets put in. Or you do an extra copy of, or everybody scans everything that's in the next day's folder. There's a lot of different ways for you to morph things and add a digital to a process that isn't just traditionally turning everything into a PDF because you ran it through a scan snap or through the machine and the file room. So anyway, like I said, so these three processes I think will give the biggest jump for everybody in terms of personal productivity. And I guess if anybody has any questions or wants to discuss any of the other ones, which there are a ton, I know, I'm more than happy to take any questions or around.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. That was a terrific presentation. There was really a lot in it. So you mentioned some links. Where would people find those? Are you going to send those to us to post?
Yes, I figured with the video, or if you were doing a recording, I would just put links right under them. The DAF Techno feature, if you're a techno person, a techno feature, techno lawyer member, you can get at it, or if you just Google it, I'm pretty sure you probably can. And then there's Bullet Journal, bulletjournal.com. Again, not difficult, but I will add the link on the bottom of it. And 43 folders. I put a video on my website because it was one that I trusted. So I know that's at legaltypist.com/43 folders, the number 43, all lowercase folders. But again, I'll send through these links for everybody too, but it's a review of the 3 different systems.
That would be terrific. We have several questions for you, so hang on a little bit. Could you repeat the list of the 5 pillars of productivity, please?
Oh, yes. Okay, so first, it's a choice. You have to decide that you're going to do something, and then you actually have to make yourself change. I'm trying to say, I'm getting them out of it. Knowing what you have to do is half the battle. So you have to start by either doing what I call a brain dump. A brain dump is where you get everything out of your head and you get it known, you get it on a physical piece of paper for it to be worked into whatever it needs to be done. It's typically the first start in my relationship in coaching with a client is doing this fundamental brain dump. How can I say this? The rule of 3 rules. How could I forget 3? The rule of 3 rules. Don't ever try to plan to do more than 3 things at one time, and that's plan. So it's not like you won't be doing only 3 things, but it's you don't ever want to plan to do more than 3 things at once. And then number 4 is, I'm trying to think, write stuff down. That's it. There's another one. I think that was actually 2. But writing stuff down is extremely important. If you don't get anything out of this, do get out of this. Get yourself a moleskin. Get yourself something that you can carry and learn to get everything into one spot that's coming out of your head. Just doing that one thing will help you immensely in terms of getting more functionality out of what you're actually carrying around in your gray head that you shouldn't be. And then number 5, always wake to a fresh new day. Yesterday could have been the most disorganized day of your life and your entire office looks like the Tasmanian devil was in it. All right, grab whatever beverage of choice you have that day, sit down at your desk, open up whatever journal you have, date it, put in your 1, 2, 3, take a sip and go, it's a new day. Let's start by organizing this office if that's what you need to do. But always give yourself some slack because I call it the Oscar to Felix. And there's everybody's type A and there's the wanting to be perfect. And so you can't. Productivity is an ongoing thing. It's forever. It's an intention and it's a goal. You need it, sometimes you don't. So you have to really cut yourself slack. Those are $5.
All right, thanks. The next question, would you clarify the border between act and defer? And that would be in the DAP system. What's the rule of thumb for how long action will take?
Like you got a little garbled there. What in the DAF system?
Sorry, in the DAF system, I don't know, it's also the feedback too.
You can't. You just garbled again. What's it? It's like what? What?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
It's like I hear you, but then it goes garbled right at. Oh, I'm going to try not to make any noise. Let's go ahead. No, maybe it's me.
Can you clarify the border between act and defer? What's the rule of thumb for how long an action will take?
Okay. So the way that it works with defer and act. So when you're in your inbox, your act is anything that requires an action, and defer is anything that you don't want to deal with or can't deal with now, but you need to at a future time. So you don't want to file it, because file is where you put things that you only have to go to if you're researching and have to call back up again. That's basically out of your sphere. Defer is you want to come back to it at a future time, but you're not really clear as to when, or perhaps it's when you have already defined. But act is something you have to do right now. Like, so this email comes in and you got to answer it. Oh, you got to finish that paper for that person. Oh, you have to go and do this over there and do that. Anything that requires an action is something when you're in your inbox has to go into the act, because you can't stop and do it now. You have to recognize that it needs an action, and then you just throw it in your act. The point being is you're going to daft your inbox so frequently that it takes you like this. It just goes. It's not about working in your email. It's about getting through what's in there and understanding what work you need to do from it, and then scheduling your time. So that's where act comes in. When you go into act, if it's going to take less than 2 minutes, now. Do it now. If not, schedule when. You could go in and say your 2-minute actions are going to take an hour, and you didn't realize that when you started drafting. Okay, so now you know you need to block off an hour to go into your act, to clear out your act. There's, like I said, it's about making sure you get these actions defined, realizing how much time each one of them takes, and then, if possible, getting rid of as many of the 2-minute or lesses as you can. Then scheduling the ones that are longer. Once you parlay those out and you get those on your calendar, it's about a week before you start going, oh, I forgot. Oh, yeah. And it just really, again, it will help define your forward actions as well as helping you get through that email inbox in a sane way.
Okay, the next question. The bullet journal, does an electronic journal work, or does it have to be paper? And do you talk about that in your ebook?
I don't discuss, right now the only ebook that I have out is Daft, so it doesn't even discuss. I think it mentions it at the end as oh, by the way, go look at this. Because I don't recommend anything until I've been using it a long time, and I didn't find Daft I didn't find bullet journal until after Daft was written. So, I'm sorry, what was the beginning of that question?
The beginning of the question was about whether an electronic bullet journal.
Okay, that's right. Okay. So what I have found is I have not yet found a way to mimic my efficiency while writing on a screen in the same way that I do as paper. I recommend paper for other reasons. There's a visceral thing to it. I also like to read paper books. It's just it's a thing. I look at a screen enough all day. I don't want to have to keep looking at it. That said, if I told you how many times I had to do nothing else but grab this and flip to a page to get at some piece of information that I know I had it digitally, I know I had it in different places, but I'd have to fire this up, I'd have to go there, I'd have to open that, I'd have to do, well, all I have to do is go, Vancouver, right? That's where I thought he was. So what I'm trying to say is do the paper if you can. If you are a devotee of the electronic and you want to incorporate it in, the only two things that I've heard of from the people that have incorporated the system that work are the Samsung Notes. They like it, and Brett Burney was going to try the system, but he mentioned the iPad and the new iPad Pencil, which is probably like 1.5 years old now. But those, he said that actually felt like pen on paper. I don't have eye things, so I've never been able to test it. So if you want to try to do it electronically, okay. For the brain dump, I'm going to say no. My brain dumps are always paper, and that's because you're not touching anything electronic. You're actually in a different environment. It's intentional. So, did that answer?
Yeah, I have one last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, but the writer asks about using the bullet journal for work and having it comply with client confidentiality.
Okay, so I'm all about client confidentiality. If my handwriting doesn't scare most people away, there's that. But I have always had certain conditions that I've met in all of the things that I've set up. For instance, initials, first name, last initial only, are the types of things that I utilize when even speaking with my clients. I have a tendency to do a lot of things that are cryptic. One of my favorite things in here is I have all of the toll-free numbers for all of the bills and credit cards and everything, accounts that I may at some point have to have an 800 number for. You never know when something's not going to work. And of course I would have to have the account numbers, except for I transpose specific numbers. Nobody knows but me. So if anybody were in fact to try to get this and try to do something with any of those accounts, they would not be properly identified to get through. So there are precautions that you take when you're conducting these things. When you're making it digital and you're putting in the cloud, don't get me started on that one. Paper is easy, much easier to make sure that a million people aren't going to review it. I guess people used to think it was the other way around. You had to protect all your files, all of these people. There's nobody's coming into your office to start culling through your files. Trust me, you won't. You don't even want to cull through your files. But so what I'm trying to say is when it comes to client confidentiality, if you were to lose it, and I've only lost one in all the years I've been doing it, and I guess it's glad I put the process in place and I'm thankful for it, but you take some precautions. You know, in the front is where I actually have, you know, usually my business card. This one wasn't even in it. It must have been, yeah. No, I don't even have my business card in this. So you see, it doesn't tell me anybody who I am or whatever. Again, you just try to do everything in terms of client confidentiality. When it comes to the stuff that's online, actually read the terms. Again, duty not to inadvertently disclose is one of the ones I don't think anybody's actually been paying attention to, and I think it's not a good thing that they haven't.
So there's one question, two people have asked it. I think you've answered it repeatedly, but I'm gonna just put it out there because I've had two people come back and ask. They would appreciate any tips, solutions specifically for legal services where there's no backup, no paralegal, and the attorney does everything from scheduling to going to court, and the resources are slim to none.
So you're telling me you're overworked, underpaid, and you have no money or time to make anything better. Is that what I'm getting?
I don't know, they're asking for tips. I think you've given me tips.
Okay, well, see, it's very difficult even in that situation because it could be a technological tip or it could be a practical tip. Your tip, even the two people are asking it, schedule a call with me. I do a 15-20 minute free phone call with everybody. If you go to AndreaCannavina.com, I know it's a mouthful, AndreaCannavina.com, it's right there. If you can only find LegalTypist, you can flick it from there. They'll send it up to me. It'll come to me anyway. I'll ask you the questions I need to ask you in order to give you the tip that you may need. That said, one of the tips that I give universally to everybody, including my virtual assistant friends, is to get a Dymo label printer. It's a twin turbo. It's got 2 rolls on it. One roll is for your labels, one roll is for your stamps. These devices come with an account so that you can print your postage and you don't have to get a stamps.com. Typically, they've been free. They're doing some changing around. You do have to pay extra for it's not just the cost of labels, it's postage money. It's a little more expensive, but the convenience factor alone, every solo professional or anybody that's ever tried to mail something, just get the Dymo. It's under $250. You get a couple of rolls of stamps for under probably like $60. Set up your account, boom, you'll be able to mail anything 2-day, overnight, whatever you need. Just leave it in your mailbox.
really, really good tips. This was terrific, Andrea. Thank you so much for your time and your advice. We're going to post this recording. We will post the slides. We will post your contact information so people will be able to get it. And I wanted to say that you mentioned Office 365, and it's a great segue because anybody who wants to learn more about that, next month on October 9th, Catherine Sanders Reach is going to be with us, and she's going to share the hidden gems of Office 365.
I love Catherine.
It's sure to be valuable to everybody who's tuned in today. So thank you again for tuning in, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.